In 1899, two brothers set out to build the world's first self-powered aircraft, and in the beginning, they knew nothing about flight. For the next 4 years, the brothers conducted thousands of experiments that failed, crashing dozens of kites, gliders, and airplanes. Now, they failed so many times that at one point they were quoted saying that it would be 1,000 years before man could fly. But as most success stories go, these guys never gave up. Instead, they took one small lesson from each failure, and as they so famously did in 1903, Wilbur and Orville Wright made history by flying the world's first self-powered aircraft. The reason I'm telling you this story is because it contains an important lesson, and that is improvement is the process of acquiring and then applying beneficial knowledge. You see, what the Wright brothers stumbled upon in their quest for flight is a model for improvement, and you can use this same model for self-improvement. The term self-improvement often gets a bad rap, and that's because a lot of self-improvement advice is very far-fetched and unrealistic. Because this video is about self-improvement, I wanted to define the term myself. So self-improvement is not about manifesting Ferraris into your driveway with the law of attraction. It's not about being better than other people, and it certainly doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It does, however, have a lot in common with how the Wright brothers learned to fly. Self-improvement is the process of acquiring useful information and then applying that information to improve your life. So if you're always on the wrong end of a deal, then you can improve your life by learning about negotiation and applying those techniques the next time you negotiate. If you're completely overwhelmed by your to-do list, then you can improve your life by learning about productivity and time management and applying those ideas to your life. And if you're completely overwhelmed by strong emotions like stress, anxiety, fear, and sadness, then you can improve your life by learning about meditation and starting a practice. Now, before we get into talking about real improvements, I wanted to take a minute to warn you about false improvements. And that's because some improvements are the result of sheer luck. So let's assume you have to take a test on a subject you know nothing about. So you take this test, you guess every single answer, and you get a 40%. Now assume that you're not allowed to review the answers of the test, so you don't have the opportunity to learn anything. And then you have to take the test again. But this time you miraculously somehow get a 90%. Well, technically speaking, this is an improvement, but it's an improvement of little value. And that's because the results aren't repeatable and you've learned nothing in the process. Believing that this type of improvement is a real improvement would be the equivalent of being broke and completely financially irresponsible, and then winning the lottery and believing that you've become financially responsible. So the main point here is simple. If you're trying to improve something in your life, just make sure that you don't fall into the trap of believing that false improvements are real improvements. Okay, let's talk about the process of real improvement. When you improve any skill, you pass through 4 stages. Stage 1 is awareness. In the awareness stage, you become aware that you have a problem, but you have no idea what that problem is. So let's use the example of becoming a new photographer. So if you're a new photographer and you take a picture, you might be aware that your pictures don't look professional, but you'd have no idea why in the awareness stage. Stage number 2 is identification. In the identification stage, you identify what the problem is, but you still have no idea how to solve it. So going back to the photography example, in this case, you may have recognized that your problem is a lighting problem, but you still have no idea how to fix that lighting problem. Stage number 3 is solution. In the solution stage, you find the solution needed to fix your particular problem. So going back to the photography example, in this stage, you would have found a particular solution to your lighting problem. And finally, stage number 4 is application. In the application stage, you apply the solution you discovered to fix your problem. So going back to the photography example, you would use your new lighting technique to take better pictures. So now the question becomes, how do I get through the 4 stages of improvement? And there's really only one thing you need to do that, and that's knowledge. Knowledge. Why did I script that word? This is not a way to start a YouTube channel. There were definitely better choices. Let's go with information. All joking aside, here's the thing about information. You really can't improve any skills until you gain new information. Let me explain. Let's say you get your first camera, the kind of camera that has an infinite number of dials and settings. So you take your first picture and it doesn't turn out that well. Well, the only way that you can improve moving forward is by learning something new, gaining some new information. So that might be learning something about the camera or photography in general. And broadly speaking, there are two ways that you can acquire new information. The first is through education. That might be reading a book, taking a course, or watching a how-to video. And the second is through experimentation. And this is the approach that the Wright brothers took. You see, every time they failed or crashed a plane, they learned something new, and then they used that information to improve moving forward. Experimentation also explains why practice works. So let's say you're learning to kick a soccer ball or play piano. Well, in that case, every failure or success sends some feedback to your brain and nervous system. And it's this feedback that allows you to improve. The final benefit of information is it makes you better at experimentation. So before you know anything about a topic, any guess that you take is just blindly stabbing in the dark. But as you acquire new information, then those guesses start to become educated guesses. All right, now that you know how improvement works, I want to share a 4-step plan that can help you improve almost anything. Step number 1 is identify what you want to improve. This might sound like an obvious thing to say, but you'd be surprised at how many people get stuck in this stage. Some people know exactly what they want from life and what they want to improve, but other people get stuck in a funk and in this place where they know they need to improve, but they don't know what to do. The reason it's important to define exactly what you want is because it gives you a place to aim. And until you have a place to aim, then you'll just wander aimlessly through life. Now, if you know exactly what you want, then that's great. But if you don't, then here are 2 ideas that can help. The first idea is to think long-term. To do this, take some time and identify where you want your life to be in the next 5 to 10 years. And then ask yourself, if I continue living life the way that I'm currently living it, will I get there? Now, if the answer to that question is no, then sit down and build a plan of small steps that will help you get there. The second idea is to follow a leader. To do this, identify somebody that you look up to or admire, and then ask yourself, what are the traits and qualities that this person has that I don't have? And then once you figure out what those are, take the steps necessary to develop those traits and qualities. Step number 2 is acquire helpful information. As you've learned, if you want to get better at anything, you need information. So regardless of what it is that you want to improve, you need to figure out how to do that. You might do that by reading books, taking courses, watching a how-to video, or just like the Wright brothers, through experimentation. Step number 3 is take action. So all of the information in the world means nothing if you don't apply it. But for some reason, a lot of people seem to get stuck in this stage of the improvement cycle. I think this happens because learning new information feels good. And because you're doing something, it feels like you're improving. But the truth is, until you actually apply that information, you're not getting better at anything. If you learn all about negotiation, but then never apply those ideas when you negotiate, then you didn't get better at negotiation. And if you spend all day watching self-improvement videos on YouTube, but never apply the advice, then you're not actually improving anything in your life. So the lesson in this stage is simple. If you're trying to improve a skill, don't get stuck in the learning phase. The 4th and final step is adjust when necessary. So regardless of how much planning and strategizing and learning you do, just like the Wright brothers, your original plans won't always work out. Now, when this happens, you need to find the lesson that's buried inside of the failure and then use that lesson moving forward. And if you can do this, you'll be well on your way to improving. Now, before we end this video, I want to warn you about 2 self-improvement traps that you might get caught in. The first is perfection. Beginners often make the mistake of believing that it's possible to perfect a skill. But here's the paradox of improvement. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. So if you're trying to improve a skill, don't get caught up in the myth of perfection. That's because doing so will only hold you back. The second trap is comparison. So there is some value in comparing yourself to others, but you have to be careful about how you do this. Beginners often make the mistake of comparing themselves to people who have far more experience. And in doing so, they often leave themselves feeling frustrated and discouraged. Now, the only way to avoid this problem is by comparing yourself to yourself. And if you realize that you're better than you were yesterday, last week, or last month, then you're well on your way to improving. I can't thank you enough for watching this video, and I hope it was helpful. Now, I am shamelessly trying to grow this channel, so it would mean the world if you could subscribe, like, and share this video. Believe it or not, it takes over 100 hours to make these videos, so any help would be greatly appreciated. Now, if you want more information like this, then I highly recommend you check out my app, Aware. Aware is a self-improvement based meditation app that teaches you important skills like how to make better decisions, build good habits, and develop more self-confidence. The app combines all of those lessons with guided meditation, which helps you develop the state of mind and self-awareness needed to apply what you've learned. On top of that, you also get the benefits of meditation, like improved focus and sleep, plus a reduction in negative emotions like stress, anxiety, and sadness. So if you like the type of content you see on this channel and self-improvement in general, then I think you'll love Aware. It's available on iOS, Android, and the web, and you can get started for free with the links below in the description. As a final note, I've also listed some helpful resources below, like a transcript of this video that cover all of the ideas I shared today in a clear and organized format. Thanks again for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you soon.